Okay, good morning. Our learning is Lila Nishmas Mindel, Mariam Bas Kalman Ruvain. Let's go back to Nun Vav Amud Aleph, and not the whole thing, don't worry, Max. But just from Gufa. Gufa Rav Amar Kibel David Lashon Hara. It is, if you're in the article 56A3 on the bottom of the first column, and in the Gemara, it's like the fifth wide line on Nun Vav Amud Aleph. So just a little bit of background over here. So David HaMelech, we know, is he had there's a major fight of sorts between David and Shaul. Shaul wants to kill him. Shaul is not happy with him, and nonetheless, ultimately, David takes over and is king. Now, even though Shaul and David are at odds, David and Yonasan, Shaul's son, are very close, extremely close. They're exceptionally close. They're seen as the model of friendship in the Torah. Despite the fact that David was a threat to Yonasan's future, nonetheless, they still have this incredible relationship. Great. Now, when David assumes the throne, he wants to be good to the family of Shaul. Mostly it's explained that mostly in respect to Yonasan, he wants to be good to whoever's left from that family. Most of the family got killed, but he wants to be good to that family. So there's this individual Mephibosheth, who he tracks down, but he doesn't initially track him down. He tracks his servant, his slave Tziva, down, and he finds Tziva. He questions Tziva, as we're about to see, and he wants to learn a little bit more about Mephibosheth. As we'll see, Tziva lies to him. He lies to him at this point. The lie is one which, you and I would say is not so consequential, but he sees he's a liar. He disparages his master. He basically describes him as someone who is not knowledgeable in Torah whatsoever, and it turns out that he is. Okay, not so bad, fine. That's but we see that Tziva is a liar. Okay, and then later on, fine. So then what happens is that David welcomes Mephibosheth back. He gives him whatever. He takes care of him. He makes sure that he's cared for. He feeds him. Basically, he completely supports him from the king's treasury. As out of respect and out of the friendship that he had with Yonasan. So far, so good. Okay. Later on, we know that there are some rebellions when David is king. One of those rebellions is taking place by his son Avshalom. David runs during this rebellion. And the people who support David, they follow him. They go with him. Okay. One of the people who does not come with him is Mephibosheth. Okay. So later on, when David goes back and assumes the monarchy again, he is going to confront Mephibosheth and say, why didn't you come with me? Okay. First, he has a dialogue with Tziva. Okay. And Tziva is going to give him one story, and then he's going to go ahead and he's going to see Mephibosheth, and Mephibosheth is going to give him a different story in terms of why he didn't come along. That's the basic dialogue. That's the basic background of what we're about to read over here. Okay? And fine. So let's see. So Gufa. So Rav Amar Kibel David Lashon Hara. Rav says that David accepted a slanderous report. Right? We just finished talking about one of some of the sins that David committed, and then there was a contradiction about whether or not David received Lashon Hara, and Rav says that David received Lashon Hara. We'll see that Shmuel disagrees with this, but what's the Lashon Hara? Okay, so this is the first time around. This is when David is tracking down the family of Shaul, and he wants to do good to them, and David sees this person. He's communicating with Tziva, who is his slave. The slave of Mephibosheth. He says, where is he? Yomar Tziva el HaMelech hinehu beis machir ben Amiel below Davar. He is in this, this in this place, and the final words are below Davar, and the Homiletics read of that is below Davar. He doesn't have any, even though it's Lamed Vav, but it's understood as Lo Davar. He has nothing. He has nothing to him. In other words, he doesn't know any words. He doesn't know any Torah. Okay, and that's what the words Lo Davar mean. Mi Lo Davar. David goes ahead and sends for him from Mephibosheth and brings him Milo Davar from the word, and the way that's read by Chazal is Milo Davar, like filled with words. In other words, he was described by Tziva as someone who is Lo Davar. He had nothing to him. Milo Davar, in truth, he was filled with words. He was filled with Torah. Okay, so basically Tziva is a bit of a liar. Okay, Michde. So Rav asked, since David saw that Tziva was a liar, so when Tziva goes ahead and says a false thing about Mephibosheth again, why does David go ahead and accept it? Okay, so now we're going to see how he slanders Mephibosheth, how Tziva goes ahead and does so. The king says to Tziva, Vaye ben Adonecha, where is the son of your master? Okay, where is the son of Shaul? Mephibosheth is one of the sons of Shaul. He is in Yerushalayim, and the pasuk, the important part of the pasuk is not quoted over. You have to know the psukim. The pasuk says, and the reason he's in Yerushalayim is because he's waiting. He knows that David is on the run from Avshalom, and Avshalom ends up dying. And he knows there's all this chaos, and he's sitting in Yerushalayim waiting to be crowned as king because he's part of the family of Shaul. So basically, he wants you dead. He wants you dead. That's what Tziva is telling David about his master. Everyone still with me? Yeah? Okay. How do we know that David accepted it? When David goes ahead and gives everything that belonged to Mephibosheth, he gives it over to Tziva. Okay, so clearly he accepted it. Shmuel argues and said David never accepted Lashon Hara. Instead, he understood from Mephibosheth that it was true that Mephibosheth was not so happy that David survived. Okay, how do we see? So Mephibosheth ben Shaul yara likras hamelech v'la'asa ragel v'la'asa sfam v'esbagad v'lachibes. So Mephibosheth son of Shaul goes down to meet the king when he's coming back. And again, this is after Avshalom is killed and David's returning, and now Mephibosheth meets him, and he is like all messed up. His feet aren't covered, his beard is not trimmed, his clothing is not laundered. Why? Because And the pasuk explains that from the day that the king was in exile, Mephibosheth didn't take care of himself. He was in a state of mourning. So far, so good. He looks like he is really dedicated to David. When David sees him, he says, why did you come with me? Right? If you really are on my side, why did you stay back in Yerushalayim? He says, the reason I didn't come is I was planning on coming. I was all set up to go, and my servant Siva said, I'm going to saddle the donkey, and we're going to ride together. And he basically didn't do so. And basically the donkey never showed up. He said, I'm going to take care of you. He never did so. Why does he need his servant? Because Mephibosheth says, I am lame. I'm unable to take care of myself. And the servant Siva said Lashon Hara. But you, David, you're like an angel of God. Do what's good in your eyes. So basically, Mephibosheth is giving him this whole explanation. He's saying, look, I really was planning on coming. Look, I'm dressed like this. I haven't changed. I haven't laundered since you were in exile. I was planning on coming. You could see I'm lame. I don't have the ability to prepare myself. Tziva messed me over. I really wanted to come with you. So what does David say? The king said, why do you go on speaking? You and Tziva shall divide everything. Okay, Mephibosheth responds. He says, let Tziva take everything. I'm so happy that you, the king, returned in peace to his house. Okay, so far you read this dialogue. It's a bit strange because on the one hand, David, after Mephibosheth, if he didn't, again, according to Rav, we understand that why David goes ahead and takes land away from Mephibosheth and gives it to Tziva, because he believes Tziva, who said that Mephibosheth was not, wanted David dead. Yeah? According to Shmuel's saying he didn't accept Lashon Hara. So why does Mephibosheth, why does he go ahead and give things to Mephibosheth? Why does he go ahead and take things away from Mephibosheth and give it to Tziva? So the what's it called? So So basically, the way Shmuel's understanding is that he understood, he intuited that there was something off about Mephibosheth, that although he said, yeah, I was waiting for you, and he looks like he's waiting for me, he's all dressed up this way, he understood that it wasn't that way. That really, deep down, he wanted David dead. Okay, you with me? In other words, so according to one approach, he listened to Tziva. According to the other approach, he doesn't listen to Tziva, but he understood from Mephibosheth himself something was off. But now the Gemara is going to go on a bit of a tangent and explain the dialogue that takes place between between Mephibosheth and David. Because David said, I'm going to take away your land, and Mephibosheth says, amazing. Okay, but let's see how the Gemara understands those words. Amar ani amarti masai tav v'shalom. Mephibosheth, though, really what he's saying is, I was waiting for you to come back in peace. V'at osli kach, and this is how you treat me? Lo alecha yesh li taromes, I don't have complaints against you. Ela al misha v'yach b'shalom, I have complaints against the one who brought you back in peace. In other words, Mephibosheth now is basically complaining to God. He's like, God, what did you do? Why did you bring him back? You should have let David die. He's all mad at God. Okay? And this is why the pasuk in this context describes Ven Yonasan Meriv Baal. The son of Yonasan was Meriv Baal. V'chi Meriv Baal Shemo. Was Mephibosheth's name really Meriv Baal? V'alo Mephibosheth Shemo. Al mitoch she'asa Meriva in Baala, because the fact that he made a quarrel with his master, with Hashem. Yatza Baskova Amra Lo Natza Bar Natza. Baskol who came out and said, you're a quarreler. You're someone who argues, the son of someone who argues. Nata hada amran. You're someone who argues with God. You're someone who complains against God. What just happened now? Basically, he said, God, why did you let David live? Bar Natza, you're the son of someone who's a quarreler. That you're arguing with God. That Shaul, your father, he is also someone who is an arguer with God. We'll see what this means in a second. But Shaul comes to the city of Amalek and he argues in the riverbed. Okay, we'll see what this means in a second. Let's just pause for a second. So again, what's happening over here is what the Gemara is trying to describe is that Mephibosheth is whether or not David accepted Lashon Hara about Mephibosheth. According to one opinion, he did. According to one opinion, he did not. Okay, I hope this is not just all review. I think there's just a little context which needs to be explained, and I just wanted to make sure we got it. And God willing, one day we'll be experts in Tanakh, and then we'll be able to read the Gemaras very quickly. Okay, fine. Bottom line is now we're going to go and describe where Shaul argues with God. Okay, the pasuk says that Shaul came to the city of Amalek and he fought in the riverbed. Now the problem is that Amalek does not live in a riverbed. Amalek lives in the mountains. So when it says that he fought in the riverbed, the Gemara understands that he wasn't referring that's not referring to his fight with Amalek. It must be something else. Amar Rabbi Mani al iske nachal. It means that Shaul argued about the matter of a riverbed. What does that mean? Amar Rabbi Yehuda Marav. Bishash Amar David Mephibosheth at v'tziva tachlu esasada. Okay. So, okay, we're going to come back. Oh, no. Sorry. Okay, the Gemara doesn't explain this. Let me just explain what the way the Mefarshim understand what this means. What does it mean that Shaul argued about the matter of a riverbed? Okay, yeah, what it means is like this, is that Shaul is told to go fight Amalek. How do you fight Amalek? Just to kill everyone in Amalek. Shaul does not kill everyone in Amalek. He leaves some people alive, okay? Why does he leave people alive? He leaves people alive because the fact that he makes a kal v'chomer. He makes kal v'chomer of sorts. The Gemara, the Torah is quite dramatic about a situation where someone is found dead in between a city. The whole notion of egla rufa. We have a scenario where someone is killed outside the city limits, and we have a whole process, a whole ceremony to go ahead and accept that the leaders of the city have to take responsibility if there is one person murdered in the city. Imagine the mayor of Baltimore taking responsibility every time that there's a murder in Baltimore. Okay, maybe things would be different, but the bottom line is that's what was done in the ancient world. That was what was done. Now this process, this ceremony, takes place in a riverbed. It's basically taking place in a dry area between the two cities in what's considered a riverbed. So the Mefarshim understands that Shaul made a kal v'chomer. He said, if Hashem, you care so much about one person being killed one anonymous person being killed, outside of a city. So over here, you asked me to go and kill the people of Amalek. For sure, I shouldn't let everyone die. How could I let everyone die? There's so many innocent people. The children, they did something wrong. And Shaul goes ahead and he allows people to live in Amalek. And of course, that's wrong. Why is it wrong? He made a good kal v'chomer, but God said, kill them all. So although Shaul was on the one hand right, at the same time when God says kill them, we have to listen, even though they're basically we have to override our own inner morality because of the word of God, and that's what it means that Shaul basically is also arguing with God. So Mephibosheth, who is his son, also argues with God. Basically, it's like this inherited traits that just like Mephibosheth, said to God, why did you let David live? Shaul turns to God and says, why are you telling me to kill everyone? I'm going to let some people live. He argues with God, and this is ultimately why he loses the throne, because he argues with God. Okay? Now the Gemara goes back to this situation where the discussion about the fact that David accepts Lashon Hara about Mephibosheth. Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, Bishash Amar David Mephibosheth, Ad v'tziva tachlu esasada. The moment that David said to Mephibosheth that you and Tziva are going to divide the field, Yatza Baskel v'Amrlo, Rechavam v'Yeravam yachlu es hamlucha. A voice came out from heaven and said, Rechavam and Yeravam, who are the next generation after Shlomo, they're going to divide the kingdom. In other words, the punishment for David accepting this Lashon Hara about Mephibosheth, even though, basically the fact that he accepted this Lashon Hara about Mephibosheth, because of that, the Melucha, the kingdom was split, and that's the punishment for Lashon Hara, right? Lashon Hara, he accepts Lashon Hara, and what ultimately happens is the entire Jewish kingdom gets split, and his grandson loses the Melucha, or loses part of the Melucha, and it gets split. Rechavam and Yeravam have to split the Melucha. Rav Yehuda Marav Ilmal Lekibel David Lashon Hara. Had David not accepted Lashon Hara, Lo Nachla Malchus Beis David, then the kingdom of the house of David would not have been divided. Because it was divided, what happened was Yeravam comes along. Okay, what does Yeravam do after the kingdom was divided? Yeravam goes ahead and he's jealous of the fact that Beis Hamikdash is in the portion of Yehuda. So what does he do? He sets up Avodah Zarah in his portion, and the Jewish people start serving Avodah Zarah. So had David not listened to Lashon Hara, there would not be a split in the kingdom, and therefore there would not be Avodah Zarah. And one of the reasons that we were ultimately exiled from the land was because of the fact there was Avodah Zarah. So had David not accepted Lashon Hara, then the Jewish people would still be in Eretz Yisrael, right? So quite a punishment, quite a severe punishment for the accepting of Lashon Hara. Okay, Amrav Shmuel Bar Nachmani, Amrav Yonasan, and two two more Gemaras like this about this idea of someone who sinned, who we say didn't really sin. So Shmuel bar Nachmani in the name of Yonasan says, Kol Amar Shlomo chata eina oloto. Whoever says that Shlomo sinned is making a mistake. Okay, Shneimar L'hai levavo shalem im Hashem elakav kilvav David aviv. The pasuk says about Shlomo that his heart was not complete with Hashem, just like his father. So what's the implication? Kilvav David aviv hu d'lohava. He wasn't. His heart was not like the heart of David. Michtadam elochata. But also it means he didn't sin. In other words, if I'm trying to tell you that if I want to say that Shlomo was a sinner, I wouldn't say his heart was not like David his father. His father is like the ultimate tzaddik. I wouldn't say his heart wasn't like his father. I wouldn't even compare him to his father. The fact that it says he wasn't exactly like his father implies, okay, he wasn't like David, but he wasn't a sinner, right? It means he was still in a big league, but he wasn't a complete sinner. Ela mani mekayim vehilis zikna Shlomo nashav hitos levavo. The pasuk says that when Shlomo got old, his wives turned his heart aside after other gods. Hahik Rav Nassan. This is, we have to learn the teaching of Rav Nassan. Rav Nassan Rami. Rav Nassan brings a contradiction. Ksiva hilei zikna Shlomo nashav hitos levavo. On the one, the pasuk says that when Shlomo got older, then his wives turned his heart aside. Vaksev, and the other pasuk says kilvav David aviv, that he wasn't like the heart of his father David. Kilvav David aviv hu delohava michtanam lechata. But if it says he wasn't like his father's heart, that still means he wasn't a sinner. So the pasuk says to go after other gods. Velo halach. He wanted to go after other gods. Velo halach. Again, we had a similar type of limud earlier. It doesn't say he served other gods. Leleches is in the future tense. It says his wives turned his heart to eventually go after other gods, which implies he was going to go, he wanted to go, he never ended up going. So maybe he was going to serve Avodah Zarah, he never served Avodah Zarah. Shlomo built an altar for this idol, which seems like he was worshiping them. So the Gemara says, "Shebikesh livnos v'lo bana." He wanted az yivna. What does az mean? Az is in the future tense, right? Az yashir, right? The Mefarshim all say it means in the future, right? So az yivna is in the future. So Shlomo wanted to build an idol. He wanted to build a temple. He didn't do so. Shebikesh livnos v'lo bana. Elamayata az yivna Yeshua mizbeach l'Shem. But wait, there are other psukim which imply that things were built in the future. He used the same terminology, and yet. Right, it says that Yeshua built an altar for Hashem when he came to Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara asks, "Bikesh livnos lo bana." It means that he wanted to build but didn't build. Ela debana. Of course, he did build it. Hachinami debana. Here too, of course, he built it. Ela kidetan. And the way to learn is like this. Vesabama, Rav Yossi Omer. Vesabama says, "Shalpnei Yerushalayim asher mimin lahar hamashchis asher bana Shlomo melech Yisrael ashtoras shikos tzidonim." Okay. So the pasuk speaks about Yoshiyahu, who went ahead and got rid of all the Avodah Zarah. So the short history of all the kings of Israel is, and the kings of Israel is, there's some good, some bad, and when the good ones come along, they go ahead and they bring a spiritual revolution, they destroy all the Avodah Zarah, and then eventually within a few generations, it kind of goes back to the bad way. So King Yoshiyahu, the pasuk says, he went ahead and he destroyed all of the Avodah Zarah, and he destroyed the idols that were built by Shlomo. Okay? Ask the Gemara, Afshar ba'asav lo biram, Yoshev lo biram. Yoshiyahu, who we're referring to over here, is not the first king who effected a spiritual revolution. There was Asa before him. There was Yoshaphat before him. And about each of them, it says that they eradicated all the Avodah Zarah. So, Ad Sheba Yoshio V'Yaram. Basically, they were in place until Yoshio comes along. The pasuk, we already know that Asa and Yoshaphat destroyed all the idols. Elamakish Rishonim Lachronim. Rather, it meant, the reason that it says this like this, that Yoshiyahu went ahead and destroyed everything from Shlomo, is to compare the first ones, the early kings like Shlomo, to the later kings, Yoshiyahu, meaning ma'achronim lo asu v'tala behen l'shvach. Just like the later ones, Yoshiyahu did not actually destroy all of the altars because some of them were already destroyed, and yet we give him credit as if he did. Afrishonim lo asu v'tala behen l'gnai. So too the early ones, Shlomo, even though he did not build them, we treat it like he built them. Everyone follow that? It's a little complicated. Again, Yoshio is a king, comes many, many, many years later from Shlomo. And the Torah says that he destroyed all of the Avodah Zarah, including the ones that go all the way back to Shlomo HaMelech. The Torah says there's no way that the Avodah Zarah, the idolatry of Shlomo HaMelech, was still in place. Elamai, must be, he did not destroy those ones. But it's giving him credit for having destroyed everything, even things that he didn't do, he would have destroyed them. So what? But the pasuk though compares him to Shlomo Melech. Why does it compare him? Put him next to side by side with Shlomo Melech to say that just like Yoshio gets credit for doing things he didn't do, Shlomo gets blamed for things he didn't do. What's the thing that Shlomo did not do? He did not build those avodah zarah. Okay, so basically, we're now learning that Shlomo did not build. He wanted to build, but he didn't do. Doesn't the pasuk say that he did evil in God's eyes? Full circle. Now we're saying Shlomo HaMelech wanted to serve avodah zarah. Shlomo HaMelech wanted to build idols. We've now proven that he didn't actually go ahead and do so. So if he didn't go ahead and do so, why is God saying that he did something bad, right? That we have a principle that if a person wants to sin and they don't sin, you don't get punished. You don't get punished. You want to do a mitzvah and you were held back from doing a mitzvah, you do get credit. Pretty cool. But if you want to do a sin and you don't end up doing the sin, you don't get punished. So why is Shlomo taking? Why is the pasuk saying that Shlomo did what was evil in God's eyes? The reason is that his wife served idols. His wives were doing all these things. He should have protested. He certainly could have influenced them. He did not. And therefore, he is punished for that reason. Okay, and that's the full circle. It brings us back to what we were saying earlier. Let's go a little bit more about Shlomo. I'm Rav Yehuda Shmuel. Noach lo osa tzadik sheish shamish davar acher. It would have been better for Shlomo to be a shamish, like an attendant for idols. Vayikaste bo vayatz ra b'nei Hashem. Instead of having to say that Shlomo did the evil in the eyes of Hashem. In other words, the fact the pasuk records that Shlomo did the evil in the eyes of Hashem, that's quite the disparaging comment, and therefore it's quite embarrassing. Okay, the Gemara goes further about Shlomo and the idolatry of his wives. I'm Rav Yehuda Shmuel. Shlomo as Bas Paro. Shlomo marries the daughter of Paro. Why does he do so? Primarily for, back in the day, marriages certainly be in kings. Sorry? Alliances, politics, all politics, right? Any history, right? People are marrying kings and queens. All these marriages were all just done for alliances. So Shlomo marries the daughter of Paro. Just like nowadays, having a relationship with Egypt is critical, and we want to maintain it, and Egypt wants to maintain it. So too, Shlomo's a very powerful king. They wanted there to be an alliance between Egypt and Israel, and therefore he marries her. But it wasn't so good. So what happened? She brought 1,000 musical instruments, and she would give him classes. Right? Shlomo was a curious individual, intelligent individual. She brought in all her avodah zarah. She brought in all the musical instruments that were used for these idols and said, hey, look, I want to show you what was done. Again, Shlomo never served idols, but she showed him all these things. This is the way we perform this worship for this idol, this for how we do it for this idol. And he listened. He didn't. He clapped. He didn't, or whatever. He just listened. He didn't tell her stop. And that's why these bad things happen. When that happened, when he married the daughter of Paro, Gavriel went down and he placed a reed pole in the sea, and a sandbank formed around that reed. And upon it, the great city of Rome was built. So what does this mean? What it means is that the second Shlomo accepted the avodah zarah. He didn't push back against it. That planted the seeds for avodah zarah within Israel. And because of the serving of avodah zarah, ultimately, 1,000 years later, Rome comes along and destroys Israel. So the way it's framed, so to speak, is that Gavriel went ahead and the city of Rome starts to develop on that day. It's a way of saying, because of his misdeed, the city of Rome starts being built. The day that Yeravam built the 2 golden calves, which is after the kingdom split. One was in Beisel, one was in Dan. One hut was built on that sandbank, and that was the city. Ultimately, became the city. Became Italy, which is ultimately where Yavan comes from, Greece comes from, which was one of the enemies of the Jewish people. In other words, what we're saying over here is, whenever we have enemies of the Jewish people, whenever we get attacked, yes, we have to fight back. We also have to ask ourselves, what did we do to cause this? And the Gemara is telling us, Rome was built, but Rome was built because of the avodah zarah that Shlomo brought into us. We have to always be looking in the mirror. Whoever says Yoshio sinned is making a mistake. Yoshio was one of the great kings of Israel. It says by Yoshio that he went in all the ways of his father, his grandfather David. It's obviously a big compliment. Obviously he didn't sin. Ella, the Gemara asked, the pasuk says he did big tshuva. There's no one like Yoshio did tshuva like him. So the Gemara answers, called Dinan Shadan mi ben Shmona at Shmona Esrei hechzer lehen. Because Yoshio started judging the Jewish people from the age of 8. 8, halachically, you're not supposed to be doing any judgment. And when Yoshio learned that he made a mistake, they shouldn't have been doing any judgments. I don't know who's going to 8-year-olds, but he was the king. He was very wise, and they went to him. He realized he made a mistake. He goes out and returns all the money, that any judgment that he did from 8 to 18, he had records. He goes back and he gives people back the money, and that was the tshuva that he did. His mistake was he judged people from the age of 8. Nishka Ferlach, right? If that's our biggest sin, that we judge people from the age of 8, we're okay, right? And that's what we're saying. Yeah, he did big tshuva. What was his big tshuva? Because millions of dollars were judged, but he goes ahead and he gives people their money. Okay, Shema Tomar Nital Mizev and maybe you want to say he took from the winning party and gave to the losing party. Tamalon B'chol Modo, he served Hashem with all his possessions. What does that mean? Shnasla Mishlo, he took from his own money and gave it to those that he took from. Upliga Rav argues in Rav, Rav Gadol, Ein Lecha Gadol Vali Tshuva Yotzim Yeshua B'Dor Be'echa B'Dorenu. The Gemara says that Rav said no, he really was about tshuva. Really, he sinned and really he did tshuva. So there's machlokas: was Yoshio a real sinner and did tshuva, or was Yoshio someone who did this minor thing and not a sinner? But he says there was Yoshio was the greatest one, and someone in our generation. Umanu, who's the one in our generation? Abba Avud Rabbi Yirmiyah Bar Abba Ramla Acha Achua Abba Avud Rabbi Yirmiyah Bar Abba Amar Abba V'Ache Ache Havu. Okay, it was Acha, the brother of Abba. That's who it was. Okay, it doesn't tell us anything about him, but he was a great Baal Tshuva. Amar Yosef Acha B'Dereno. There's another one in our generation who's a great Baal Tshuva. Manu, who is he? Ukvan Bar Nechem Reish Glusa. Ukvan, the son of Nechemia, who is the Reish Glusa. Hanu Nasan did Tzitzusa, and his nickname is Nasan of Tzitzisa. Amar Yosef have Yasim of Pirka the Havakam name. I was dozing off while I was learning V'chazin, which he's admitting I was falling asleep in the base medrash. V'chaz v'chalma, and I saw in a dream to Kapasha Yidei V'Kable that an angel stretched out its hand and accepted the tshuva of Nasan, and therefore we see from here that he was a great Baal Tshuva and his tshuva was accepted. Hanulach Bama Mehema Yotza Hadra V'Hadra Chalan. We just finished the 5th chapter. Shkayach. We're going to begin the 6th chapter tomorrow. Have a great day.